The hard season will split you through. Do not worry. You will bleed water. Do not worry. This is grief. Keep speaking the years from their hiding places. Keep coughing up smoke from all the deaths you have died. Keep the rage tender because the soft season will come. It will come. Loud, ready, gulping, up all night, up all of the nights to drink all damage into love. Therapy by Naira Waheed. It's easy to forget. Growing up, I was constantly reminded by my mother how important it was to remember my roots, to remember where I came from, and she never wanted me to forget that my grandmother immigrated to this country with her to escape a civil war, or how my Nana and Papi grew up and pursued the American dream and worked hard to build their own home. She wanted me to remember the past, the struggle, and the pain like I remember to brush my teeth every single morning. Now, my memories of the past are a little blurry, but there's one in particular that, even though I've wanted to forget at times, I haven't failed to. The orange walls reminded me of the fire in their eyes, and my young mind tried to comprehend what kind of monster hid under the bed of people who shared a soft pillow and had heavy hearts and hard heads. If I'm remembering correctly, I was by the door, and his fists were on her shirt. Her hands were pushing her away. Her back was to the wall. They exchanged some words and then tried to forget the situation with a passionate kiss. I was only left trying to attempt to forget the situation with wishes and hoping it would go away. As a witness to the struggles that my parents went through, I often wanted nothing more than to forget. My background and my history was something that I was ashamed of. It was something that I wanted to run away from. And, I remember that school was originally a place where I was able to forget. I was surrounded in a sea of faces that didn't look like mine, so I was able to forget. I went to a predominantly white school in 3rd grade because it was a better school. Because my parents knew that if I went to the school, I would probably get a good education and do good things. And I've realized that being in places similar to the school that I went to meant compromising my identity and who I was on a daily basis. We live in a system that encourages students to forget. We've neglected to reconcile with our history of oppression and of separation. And in schools, we're taught that it's better to bottle up and ignore the struggle and the pain and do good. We're taught to glorify the figures that hated us. We're taught not to be ourselves. And anytime we try to remember, we're taught that it's not school appropriate. Now, when you tell a student that who they are isn't accepted, is inappropriate, when an entire nation tells a student to forget, you're denying them the right to be human. I personally navigated through the better public school system, working hard for my parents who never failed to support me in everything that I do. And as I pursued academic success, I realized that parts of myself were being eaten away at, were being forgotten. And it was only during my high school experience at the Met High School that I was able to remember. The funny thing is, I didn't even want to go to the school. My mom actually had forced me to go to the school because she saw the potential in the non-traditional learning. I, on the other hand, fell victim to rumors grounded in stereotypes that were fed to me by people from the past school that I went to. And I went into the school knowing how to forget. Everything that I knew and who I was something that I wanted to run away from. And I thought that intelligence meant having straight hair that you could comb over. And I thought that success looked like wearing a suit and tie and a briefcase. And I thought that the only way you were ever able to be something was if you drove a hybrid car, wore Sperry's, and knew all the characters to Harry Potter. Growing up, I really rejected everything that I knew in order to strive to be something else. And I still remember the very first project I did at the Met High School as a freshman, the Who Am I project. It was the first time I was actually able to embrace my culture in an educational setting. It was the first time I was asked to reflect upon my own history in a school experience. And I've realized that being surrounded by my amazing peers and who all have different identities and being promoted to talk about our identities in a school environment, I've been able to learn about my own. Now I'm aware of how systems function and affect me in a very physical way. So I'm committed to doing everything in my power to affecting them right back. I've been fortunate enough to actually co-found a business called Diversity Talks throughout my high school career. Diversity Talks is student-led professional development grounded in the cultural competencies of equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'm also working at my internship. Thank you. I'm also working at my internship with the Creative Classrooms program, an arts integration program that specifically works with ELL and bilingual students to kinesthetically engage them in text. And I have this one story of one day when I was at my internship working with my mentor, Natalie. We were reading this book about how one act of kindness can save the world because it spreads to everyone and then everything is perfect. And you know, my mentor, Natalie, innocently read a line from the story that said, "Oh, what beautiful blue eyes you have." And initially I kind of, had my opinions. I looked around the room and looked at the faces of all the students that we were teaching this story to. I approached Natalie after the lesson and I said, "Natalie, none of these students have blue eyes. I just wanted her to think about this." Then she responded and she thought for a little and she was like, "You're right. I don't even have blue eyes." And I realized that these students are constantly told that identities other than their own are better. They're surrounded by figures of authority and curriculums who don't reflect or respond to their cultures or their background. And now I'm trying everything in my power to make sure that students don't feel like they have to forget, that they don't want to compromise who they are in educational spaces, despite what they see in the news, despite policies that are passed, or despite what people in office want to tell them. The work of educators is exhausting, but I believe it's vital to reshaping our society and national narratives. We have to look into our own identities in order to give students the tools to do so themselves. And this requires that we challenge traditional methods because we're dealing with a systemic problem. It requires that students and teachers have the capacity to learn from one another and that we work towards long-term solutions, one student at a time. That we question every single time we feel uncomfortable because the truth is you only begin to learn the moment you feel uncomfortable. During my high school year, I've definitely felt uncomfortable. I've learned how to challenge traditional systems. And I've realized that the act of going to a big picture school itself is challenging a broken system. My high school students, my peers, my high school community, the very existence of it is challenging in an entire society to reflect, to remember. And I'm still learning. I'm still on my path to grasping the full capacity of what it means to remember despite being told to forget. In order to heal and reconcile with my personal history, I've had to look into myself, into my own experiences. Reflection has been one of my greatest teachers, along with my amazing advisor, David Cass. And I've realized that now more than ever, it's crucial that we look into ourselves in order to reflect and heal together. Reflection's impossible when you're told to forget. The Met gave me the chance to remember, gave me the chance to talk here today, to talk for me, but also all of the other students who have been told to forget, all of the other teachers who have been told to forget, who share this sentiment. This right here is how I heal and how I grow. This is my therapy, and I'm so appreciative for all of you for sharing this moment with me. Thank you.